Well, Peaky Blinders is thematically very rich. It's set at this fascinating point of history, and there are so many kind of conflicts and power struggles going on. People moving from the country into the city, and kind of the rise of communism and interwar, and people who traditionally didn't have much power in society, the Shelbys, gaining a lot of power. And what the TV show does is, let you watch all these fascinating conflicts play out. But what you can do in virtual reality and in games is let players explore that at their own pace. So we can sow seeds of story through the world that the player can explore themselves, and they can interact with these characters firsthand. So it's more about the player exploring the world and uncovering these kind of themes and stories at their own pace, rather than watching someone else have all the fun.
What is it about kind of this kind of particular point in the Peaky timeline as a kind of jumping in point for this story?
So this is a really exciting point of the show. Tommy has just become an MP, and for the Shelbys, they're approaching the apex of their power. And what our game does is it looks at that point from the perspective of a couple of outsiders. The player is a little bit of an outsider. He grew up with the Shelbys in Small Heath, but his life took a very different path. And whereas his childhood friends, Tommy and Arthur, are now, they're legitimate businessmen to some extent, and Tommy has, a huge amount of legitimate power as an MP. The player is playing as somebody who he went to war with them, but he deserted, and now he can't even get legal work. So he's almost a little bit like a mirror to the Shelbys, and he really throws their stories into sharp relief. So the game is very much about them and how they have accomplished all this power, but it's from the perspective of someone who almost could have been them. I would say this is an excellent first experience for someone who's not familiar with VR. On one hand, we've worked really hard with the tutorial and to have little pointers around the world, but most importantly, I think it's a very intuitive world where, whether you've seen the show or not, but you do kind of instinctively know what to do. You come into the garrison with Tommy and there's a drink in front of you. You pick up the drink. There's an envelope somewhere. You can pick it up and read it. The visual language of the game is quite similar to the visual language of the show and also the real world. So things that players might want to do in real life, you can just do in this game. The controls aren't complicated because you're just reaching your hand out to pick something up. So I would say it is a very good entry point into VR for somebody who wasn't familiar with it.